Imagine the soft warmth of a spring afternoon in the dense woods of northwestern Pennsylvania, where wildflowers bloom in scattered patches and the distant hum of a stream mingles with birdsong. It's Sunday, May 8, 1938, Mother's Day, and the West family has driven out from their home in Bradford for a simple picnic celebration in the remote white gravel area of McKean County, deep within what would later become the Allegheny National Forest. 4-year-old Marjorie West, with her curly red hair, freckled cheeks, bright blue eyes, and a red Shirley Temple style hat perched on her head, toddles happily alongside her 11-year-old sister Dorothea, picking violets to make a bouquet for their mother. The family spreads a blanket near the road, parents Shirley and Cecilia chatting with friends while 7-year-old brother Alan plays nearby. Around 3 o'clock, Dorothea steps away for just a moment to speak with their mother. When she turns back, Marjorie is gone. No cry echoes through the trees, no rustle of footsteps fleeing, just an empty patch of grass where a little girl stood seconds before. In that fleeting instant, on a day meant for joy and family, Marjorie West vanishes into thin air, launching one of America's oldest and most haunting unsolved child disappearances, a mystery that has tormented generations and left a small town forever changed. Marjorie West was born on June 2, 1933 in Bradford, Pennsylvania, the youngest child of Shirley and Cecilia West. A lively toddler with a southern twang in her voice, perhaps picked up from relatives, she was doted on by her siblings, Dorothea and Alan. The family lived a modest, working-class life in the oil town of Bradford, where Shirley worked steadily and Cecilia managed the home. Marjorie was described as curious and playful, fond of hide and seek, though shy around strangers. She had freckles across her nose, spoke with gaps in her baby teeth, and that day wore a blue dress, white ankle socks, newly bought patent leather shoes, and her favorite red hat. The Wests were devout, attending church every Sunday, and that Mother's Day morning followed their usual routine. Services in Bradford, then a 40-minute drive south along Route 219 to the secluded white gravel clearing off Chapel Fork Road, a spot chosen for its quiet beauty and proximity to a stream where Shirley could fish. The picnic unfolded peacefully at first. Family friends, the Ackerlands, joined them. Blankets spread, food unpacked. The children explored nearby, warned to steer clear of a large boulder where rattlesnakes might hide. Marjorie and Dorothea wandered a short distance, 20 to 30 feet, to gather wildflowers. Dorothea later recalled leaving her sister briefly near the flowers to return to their mother. It was only moments. When she looked back, Marjorie had vanished. No sign of disturbance. No discarded hat or shoe. Just the bouquet of violets she had been holding, later found scattered near the road. Panic set in quickly. Shirley searched the immediate area, calling her name. Cecilia stayed near the car, hoping for a phone call that never came. Family and friends scoured the woods. By evening, they drove to nearby Kane to alert authorities. Police arrived swiftly, but nightfall hampered efforts. The next day, the search exploded. Hundreds mobilized, local oil workers given time off, Boy Scouts, civilians, forming shoulder-to-shoulder lines through the dense forest. Bloodhounds from New York traced her scent from the flower patch down to the road, where it abruptly ended, alongside the dropped violets. Planes flew overhead grids, streams dragged, abandoned wells probed. Over 3,000 searchers at peak, one of the largest child hunts since the Lindbergh baby 6 years earlier. Media descended fiercely. Front pages screamed, "Little red-haired girl vanishes." Rewards climbed to thousands, huge for Depression-era Pennsylvania. Tips flooded. A child seen in Canada, another in the South. Strange clues emerged. Witnesses reported 2 cars passing the picnic site shortly before 3 p.m. One identified innocently, the other not. A scrap of lace found in the woods sparked hope, but Marjorie wore none. A freshly dug spot unearthed, only buried wine casks. 5 days in, State Police Commissioner P.W. Foote publicly suggested Marjorie wandered off playing hide and seek, her favorite game, and became lost. But no footprints led deeper into the woods. No signs of animal attack, though bears and snakes lurked. Rattlesnake warnings that day fueled wild theories. a mother bear mistaking her for a cub. Unlikely, experts said. Unsettling sightings chilled investigators. Late that night, around 11:30, a taxi driver in Thomas, West Virginia, 8 hours south, reported a man in his 30s checking into a hotel with a weeping girl matching Marjorie's description, dressed similarly, asking for a motel then liquor. The child left in the car, bundled perhaps. Police investigated, but West Virginia authorities dismissed it as a motorist with his adopted daughter. Travel time matched a direct route down 219. Another report, a gray Plymouth speeding erratically near Marshburg. Emotional devastation gripped the Wests. Cecilia remained home by the phone, grief consuming her. She died young in 1956, heartbroken. Shirley searched obsessively. Dorothea carried lifelong guilt, resembling Marjorie so closely that age progressions used her photos. The family fractured under suspicion and sorrow. Bradford's innocence shattered, parents grew warier, children supervised closer, even in safe-seeming woods. Investigation mistakes stung hindsight. Delayed full mobilization, initial hide-and-seek assumptions slowed urgency. Vast forest, thousands of acres, hard to grid perfectly in 1938 tech. No forensics like today, no DNA, limited fingerprints. Bloodhounds lost scent at road, suggesting vehicle. Theories clashed immediately. Lost and perished from exposure, but no remains despite exhaustive searches. Animal, no evidence. Abduction for ransom. No demand, unlike Lindbergh. Illicit adoption rings. Depression-era black markets thriving, Georgia Tann notorious for stealing children to sell wealthy couples. A man and girl heading south fit patterns. Stranger predator or someone watching the family. As weeks turned months, searches waned. 5 months intensive, then sporadic. No body, no arrest. Marjorie's trail ended at that road, violets scattered like forgotten promises. The case became legend, America's great unsolved child mystery. Whispers persisted. Alive, raised elsewhere, taken north to Canada, south to anonymity. Dread deepened over time. A little girl alone briefly in sunshine, swallowed by shadows without a trace. What or who waited just beyond the flowers, patient enough to strike in moments? The forest kept its silence, but questions echoed louder with each passing year. Who saw a red-haired child that Mother's Day and decided she belonged elsewhere? And why has the truth stayed buried deeper than any search could reach? As summer turned to fall in 1938, the vast Allegheny Forest held its secrets tighter, the once thrilling search parties thinning as hope bled away with the changing leaves. By June, the intensive 5-month hunt had slowed to occasional patrols, the 3,000 volunteers reduced to a dedicated few who still combed the underbrush on weekends. Bloodhounds long gone, planes grounded. The scattered violets Marjorie had been picking, found wilted near the road, were pressed into evidence envelopes, the only tangible remnant of her presence that Mother's Day afternoon. No clothing, no shoe print leading deeper into the woods, no cry preserved in memory, just an abrupt end to a scent trail at the gravel edge, as if a 4-year-old child had been lifted clean from the earth. Investigators grappled with the void. Pennsylvania State Police, led by Commissioner P.W. Foote, clung publicly to the wandering theory. Marjorie, fond of hide and seek, toddled off playfully, became disoriented in the dense timber and succumbed to exposure or accident. Rattlesnakes in the area fueled speculation, perhaps a bite, a fall into a ravine. But exhaustive grids turned up no body, no disturbed earth beyond the picnic site. Bears roamed nearby, experts dismissed attack, no blood, no drag marks, no remains scattered. Streams dragged repeatedly yielded nothing. The forest, vast and unforgiving even then, seemed complicit in silence. Unsettling witness accounts pulled focus elsewhere. The taxi driver in Thomas, West Virginia, over 200 miles south, an 8-hour drive down Route 219, insisted on his story. Around 11:30 that night, a man in his mid-30s, well-dressed but nervous, paid cash for a room, accompanied by a crying child he claimed was his daughter. The girl matched Marjorie perfectly, curly red hair, blue eyes, similar dress, asking repeatedly for mama. Bundled in a blanket when left in the car. The man requested liquor, then departed abruptly. Local police investigated, but the trail cooled. Hotel records vague, no names. Travel time aligned precisely with a direct route from white gravel. Coincidence strained belief. Another sighting chilled spines. A gray Plymouth coupe seen speeding north from the picnic area shortly after 3 p.m., driver glancing nervously in mirrors. A different witness reported a dark sedan lingering near Chapel Fork Road earlier, two occupants watching the families. Descriptions vague, 1930s cars common, but the timing gnawed. The innocent car identified belonged to a family friend arriving late. The other, phantom. False leads tormented the Wests. Sightings poured in nationwide. A red-haired girl in a Toronto orphanage, another in Kentucky with new parents. Rewards swelled to thousands, substantial in depression dollars, yet tips proved mistaken identities or attention seekers. One man confessed dramatically in Pittsburgh, abducted her for ransom, panicked, buried shallow. Excavation unearthed nothing. Prank calls mocked Cecilia by phone. Mistakes shadowed the probe from the start. Initial hours lost to picnic site assumption. No immediate roadblocks on remote routes. Vast terrain overwhelmed 1938 methods. No helicopters, limited radios, foot searches only. Scent trail ending at road noted but not pursued aggressively with vehicle checks. Media frenzy. Newspapers plastering Marjorie's freckled face daily. Tainted witness recall. Suggestions planting false memories. No fingerprints viable in outdoor scene. No forensics beyond basic tracking. Emotional wreckage consumed the family. Cecilia barely ate, sitting motionless by the window, waiting for a knock that never came. She passed in 1956 at 52, grief carving years from her life. Shirley searched obsessively, driving backroads alone, calling into dusk until his voice failed. Dorothea, 11 and guilt-ridden for that momentary turn away, grew into a woman haunted by resemblance. Age progressions later based on her features to imagine Marjorie grown. Alan withdrew. The West home on Bradford's quiet streets became a shrine of sorrow, curtains drawn against curious eyes. Community paranoia deepened. Bradford and McKean County, oil towns toughened by hard times, grew watchful. Parents forbade woodland play. Children escorted everywhere. Mother's Day picnics avoided for years. Churches prayed for Marjorie by name decades later. The case echoed the Lindbergh tragedy 6 years prior, but without ransom or resolution, pure vanishing. Theories fractured along grim lines, wandered and perished, most official, least sinister. But no remains despite intensity rivaling national cases. Animal attack, dismissed for lack of evidence. Illicit adoption, depression, desperation birthed black market rings. Notorious Georgia Tann stole children for wealthy clients, records sealed. A well-dressed man speeding south with crying child fit patterns chillingly. Sexual predator dark but possible, though no struggle signs. Family involvement whispered cruelly, dismissed swiftly, no motive, alibis solid. By 1939, searches ceased officially. File open but cold. Marjorie declared legally dead years later for administrative closure, but never in hearts. Whispers persisted. Alive, raised unknowingly elsewhere, spotted in California as teen. Canada sightings, none confirmed. World War II diverted attention, then post-war boom buried memory deeper. Yet echoes resurfaced. 1950s, new sheriff revisited, dogs retraced, nothing. 1970s, anonymous tip of bones in old mine shaft, animal only. 1980s, psychic visions of water and red hat, streams dragged fruitlessly. Into the 1990s, the case entered early databases. Charlie Project listed her, age progressions showing a red-haired woman in 50s, 60s. Internet forums dissected car sightings, adoption theories. Podcasts later revived interest. Unsolved Mysteries segment, my favorite murder mentions. Conflicting evidence tormented generations. Sent to road screamed vehicle abduction, yet wandering theory lingered for lack of proof. No ransom like high-profile cases, suggesting personal motive or impulse. Hide-and-seek child vanishing in play, or lured silently by familiar voice. As Allegheny National Forest formalized around the site, trails cut near white gravel, hikers unaware of ghosts. Chapel Fork Road paved smoother, but essence unchanged. Dense timber swallowing sound. 87 years on, Pennsylvania State Police list her historical missing. Tips still urged, though rare. No DNA without remains. No statute on questions. Bradford remembers quietly. Mother's Day flowers left anonymously at old picnic markers. Dorothea, last direct link, passed years ago carrying guilt unspoken. The violets bloom again each spring, scattered by wind where a little girl once stood. But the forest keeps its counsel. Someone or something waited patient in sunlight that afternoon, striking in the space between heartbeats. Who watched a family picnic closely enough to know exactly when a 4-year-old lingered alone among flowers, and who lifted Marjorie West from that sunny clearing without a trace, leaving only scattered petals and a lifetime of wondering. The answers lie buried deeper than any search party ever reached, patient as the trees that have grown tall over the spot where innocence ended on a day meant for celebration. As the calendar turned to the post-war years, the disappearance of Marjorie West faded from front pages, but never from the collective memory of McKean County, a quiet scar on the landscape of northwestern Pennsylvania. By the 1950s, the Allegheny Forest had begun its transformation into the national reserve it is today, trails cutting through areas once scoured by thousands, yet yielding no secrets. Shirley West continued his solitary drives along Route 219, eyes scanning ditches and clearings until age confined him. Cecilia's health crumbled under the unrelenting grief. She passed in 1956, whispering Marjorie's name in her final days. Dorothea, burdened by that fleeting moment of turning away, married and raised a family. But the resemblance to her lost sister haunted mirrors and photographs, age progressions in later years drawn from her face to imagine Marjorie grown. The case file yellowed in Pennsylvania State Police drawers, reopened sporadically by new troopers drawn to its enigma. In the 1960s, mine closures across the region, prompted by unrelated child deaths, sparked brief excavations of old shafts near white gravel, but nothing emerged. Anonymous tips trickled, bones in abandoned wells, sightings of red-haired women in distant states. Each pursued, each empty. Theories evolved with the times. The wandering child narrative, clung to in 1938, strained against the scent trail's abrupt end at the road. No footprints venturing deeper, no cries heard by picnickers yards away. Abduction gained ground, especially illicit adoption rings thriving in the Depression's desperation. Georgia Tann's Tennessee Children's Home Society scandal, exposed in the 1950s, cast long shadows. Hundreds of children stolen, falsified records, sold to wealthy families far away. Tann's network reached northern states. A well-dressed man speeding south with a crying child echoed her methods chillingly. Yet no paper trail linked her operation to Marjorie. Sexual predation lurked darker, transient workers in oil fields, vagrants along highways. The 1910 vanishings of 2 boys nearby fueled whispers of a lurking wildman, though decades apart. Family acquaintance. Cruel rumors surfaced, swiftly quashed. No motive, alibis unbreakable. Into the 1970s and 1980s, psychics offered visions. Buried near water, alive in Canada. Streams Ray dragged, borders checked fruitless. A 2010 book by local author Thomas W. Olson, Finding Marjorie West, proposed a solution tying to regional figures but lacked independent verification, dismissed by authorities as speculative. The internet age breathed new life. By the 2000s, Marjorie entered databases. Doe Network, Charlie Project, Namas. Relatives submitted DNA in 2012, profiles waiting for matches against unidentified remains. Age progression circulated widely. A curly red-haired woman in her 70s, 80s shared on forums, podcasts like Crime Junkie in 2024 dissecting the Thomas sighting anew. One thread tugged persistently. A North Carolina nurse, Sylvia Waldrop, London, resembling Dorothea strikingly. In the late 1990s, researcher Kenneth Young Beck met her. She denied being Marjorie. Years later, around 2005, she allegedly contacted him, sharing a deathbed confession from her mother. Her father, working Bradford refineries in 1938, returned south with a child taken from a park after miscarriage grief. She claimed memories of siblings' names, the West Virginia stop. Yet no DNA comparison confirmed. Sylvia passed without public resolution. Fact or coincidence? The story tantalized but unresolved. Conflicting evidence endured eternally. Vehicle abduction screamed from the lost scent, scattered violets at road's edge. Yet no struggle, no witness to a snatch in daylight. Quick, silent, opportunistic, or premeditated watch on the family. Hide and seek gone wrong clashed with precision of vanishing. Mistakes of era compounded absence. No rapid alerts, vast unchecked wilderness, limited coordination in pre-radio dominance. Depression resources stretched thin. As 2025 draws to a close, December 23, 87 years since that Mother's Day, the Pennsylvania State Police maintain her as endangered missing, file active though quiet. No new developments reported this year or recent. Tips urged to Troop C at 814-930-8510. NAMUS case MP 7033, NCMEC 1,176,415. Descendants like Catherine West and Angel Covert speak occasionally, hope flickering against time. Bradford holds memorials subtly, violets left at forest edges each May. Hikers on Chapel Fork trails pause at markers, unaware or whispering the tale. The Allegheny stands sentinel, trees grown massive over the clearing where laughter turned to silence. Marjorie West's curly red hair, freckled smile, southern-tinged voice exist now in faded photos and endless what-ifs. Her patent leather shoes never scuffed further than those wildflowers. The forest has reclaimed the site but not the questions. A 4-year-old, visible one heartbeat, gone the next, on a day of celebration amid family. Who lingered near that gravel road, eyes on a child picking violets for her mother. Who seized the moment Dorothea turned, lifting Marjorie without a sound, driving into eternity. And the chill that settles deepest, heavier with 87 silent springs. If a little girl could vanish completely from a sunny picnic ground, steps from loved ones, surrounded by witnesses who saw nothing, how many other children have been watched from the tree line since, waiting for that single unguarded instant? And when you picnic in the woods this spring, gathering flowers under dappled light, are you certain the shadows aren't watching back, patient as they were that Mother's Day in 1938? As December 23, 2025, brings its quiet winter hush to the Allegheny National Forest, the disappearance of Marjorie West stands as one of the oldest unsolved child vanishings in American history. 87 years without a trace, without a body, without an answer. The clearing off Chapel Fork Road, once known as White Gravel, is now just another pull-off along a winding forest trail, overgrown with hemlock and birch that have towered higher with every passing decade. Hikers park there on warm weekends, spreading blankets for picnics, unaware that on a sunny Mother's Day in 1938, a 4-year-old girl in a red Shirley Temple hat stood picking violets only steps from where they now sit, and then simply ceased to exist in the world as anyone knew it. Pennsylvania State Police still list Marjorie as an active endangered missing person under historical cases. Her NAMUS file, MP 7033, remains open. NCMEC poster 1,176,415 circulates quietly among cold case networks. Family DNA submitted by descendants waits in databases for a match that has never come. No new credible tips have surfaced in recent years. No excavations prompted by fresh evidence. The reward fund, once thousands in depression dollars, is now largely symbolic. The forest has reclaimed every inch of ground searched so desperately in 1938, and time has done the same to memories. The picnic site itself is unmarked. No plaque, no memorial stone. Only locals and true crime researchers know exactly where to stop along the road, where to walk a few paces into the trees and stand in the approximate spot where Dorothea last saw her little sister. Wildflowers still bloom there each May, violets scattering in the breeze like silent echoes of the bouquet Marjorie never finished. The family line carries the loss forward. Dorothea lived into old age shadowed by guilt she never deserved, passing without ever knowing her sister's fate. Descendants like Catherine West and Angel Covert have spoken in interviews and podcasts, keeping the story alive with a mixture of hope and resignation. They describe a grief that skips generations yet never fully fades, an absence felt at every family gathering, every Mother's Day. Bradford and McKean County remember in subtler ways. Older residents still lower their voices when the name comes up. Churches occasionally include her in prayers for the lost. On May 8, anonymous hands sometimes leave small bunches of violets along the forest road. True crime enthusiasts make pilgrimages, standing in the clearing with photographs of a curly red-haired toddler, trying to imagine how a child could vanish in daylight with family only yards away. The evidence, or the lack of it, has never changed. Scattered violets at the roadside, a scent trail ending abruptly where tires once rested on gravel. No struggle, no cry, no discarded clothing deeper in the woods. No remains despite searches rivaling the most famous cases of the era. Just a clean, impossible absence. Theories have settled into the ones that time cannot erase. Many investigators, past and present, favor abduction by vehicle quick, silent, opportunistic. A predator watching the picnic from the tree line or roadside, waiting for the exact moment a child lingered alone. The Thomas, West Virginia sighting remains the most tantalizing thread. A well-dressed man, a crying red-haired girl, a route and timeline that align too perfectly to dismiss entirely. Illicit adoption rings of the 1930s offer a less violent but equally chilling possibility. A child taken for desperate or greedy reasons, raised far away under a new name. The wandering theory, once official, has largely withered. No 4-year-old could survive or remain undiscovered in that vast wilderness despite the intensity of the hunt. No serial killer ever credibly linked. No deathbed confession ever verified. No random discovery of bones ever matched her description. The Allegheny National Forest now draws thousands of visitors yearly, campers, hunters, leaf peepers in autumn, who walk trails near the site without knowing the ghost that lingers in the understory. The trees that were saplings in 1938 now tower overhead, their roots entwined with soil searched inch by inch. The stream still murmurs where Shirley once fished. The road is paved smoother, but the shadows fall the same way when the sun dips low. Marjorie West exists now only in grainy photographs, curly red hair framing a freckled face, blue eyes bright with toddler curiosity, red hat slightly askew, patent leather shoes gleaming new. Her voice, with its faint southern lilt, survives only in the memories of those long gone. 87 Mother's Days have passed without her bouquet of violets. And so the questions remain, as sharp and unanswered as they were in the spring of 1938. Who stood watching from the edge of that sunny clearing, patient enough to wait for the single moment when a little sister was briefly alone among the flowers? Who lifted a 4-year-old child from the grass without a sound, without a struggle, without anyone 20 feet away noticing until it was too late? Who drove away down that gravel road carrying a piece of a family's heart that would never be returned? And the coldest question of all, the one that drifts through the Allegheny like mist on a December morning. If a child could vanish completely from a bright, crowded picnic ground on a day filled with love and celebration, seen one instant, gone the next, leaving only scattered wildflowers behind. How fragile, really, is the line between the warmth of family laughter and the endless silence of the deep woods? And when you spread your blanket in a sunny clearing this spring, letting your children wander just a few steps to pick flowers, are you absolutely certain that nothing is watching from the tree line, waiting for that one unguarded heartbeat, just as it waited on Mother's Day, 1938?